Shadow boxes seem to be really popular at the moment, so I thought I would show you an easy tutorial on how you can make something like this for free. There are lots of SVG files that you can buy and things that you can add on to this, but I thought as an absolute basic introduction on how to make a shadow box, I thought this was a good project to try your hand at it. So I'm going to create this Adventure Awaits shadow box, and what you can see here is it has a black border, which is the first layer. It has a white mat, which has some text cut out of it and a frame. It then has a blue layer with a frame cut out and a green layer. So 4 layers, there's a bit of text, super simple. It's just a little fiddly and making sure that you have all of your layers aligned correctly. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on my shapes and I'm going to create a square. Now for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to make these squares 10 inches by 10 inches. You can always change the size at the end, but I find that with 10 inches by 10 inches, it's really easy to sort of get a feel for, how everything sort of fits together without trying to do too many calculations. So the first layer is my black layer. I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. So that top layer, I'm going to label these as well. You definitely don't have to. However, I find that it's just easier for me to see where everything is once I start playing around with things and cutting things. Blue layer, and finally a green layer. Okay, so I'm just going to leave them there to the side for a second and make the text, and then I'll come back and start aligning things. So I'm going to click on text down here, and I've got a cool font that I downloaded from defont.com called Supercomic. I'm going to increase the letter space just because I don't like that it's so close together, and I'm going to make that 8 inches. I'm going to duplicate that to say awaits, And I'm going to make that bottom layer 8 inches as well so that the text is sort of justified. I'll roughly move it so that the gaps between the words are roughly where I want them. And then I'm going to select both of those layers and align them horizontally. So now I know that they're exactly matched up, and I'm going to weld that together. Now, one of the reasons that I weld that together rather than just leaving it as text is because firstly, I only want to deal with one layer rather than multiple. But also, when I cut this out of cardboard, I don't want to be worrying about all of those little bits inside those letters and having to find them and stick them on. So I'm going to get rid of them. So once I've welded that together, I can click on the contour button in the bottom right corner, and I'm going to just deselect all of those little bits inside those letters. So that when this, it just becomes this block of text, which is fine. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for a second. Next thing is I'm going to align these four mats so that they are aligned to the center. Now, once I've aligned them, I don't really want to mess with them too much, because if they get out of alignment and then you cut it, it's going to be a mess and nothing's going to line up. So now I know that all four are exactly behind each other, and you can see that they're selected here on the right. Step one is cutting this frame out of this first layer, and I'm going to use this opportunity to sort of cut the frames for the other layers by using offsets. So I'm going to click on my black layer and I'm going to create an offset of -0.5 because I want a 1/2 inch border around the outside, and then go apply. Now, if you want to, I'm just going to call this layer black cutout to remind myself in a second. But before I do anything else, I'm going to create the frames that cut out of the white, the blue, and the green. So again, I'm going to go to offset, and this time I'm going to create a -0.25. And this one is going to be my white cutout. Now, I'm not going to do the green and the blue right now because I need to figure out where that bottom border is going to be, because I don't want it to cover the whole way. Okay, so first step is I've got my black layer and I've got my black cutout. So I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard to select both of these layers and slice them together. And I've now got, you can see my black frame here, and I've got these two bits at the top, which I don't need. So I'm just going to delete those two layers and rename this frame black layer because it's being replaced by that cutout. Okay, so the next thing is let's for now just hide that white cutout by clicking on that little eye button. And I'm going to put my text over this white layer. So once it's sort of, what I'm really looking for here, see, I clicked the border and I shouldn't have. So once I'm going to move my text to the top so that it doesn't do that again. So what I'm really looking for here is just getting this bottom gap right, because I'm going to align it horizontally in a second, but I just want to make sure that it is about where I want it to be. So let's say I want about that gap, select all of my layers and then align it horizontally. With my text, my world result, I'm holding Shift down and I'm selecting my white layer and I'm going to slice it out of that. And I'm going to get rid of the top two layers. And you can see now that that text is cut out of that white section. What I'm going to do now is turn that white cutout back on and bring that to the front, because this is going to be my frame for the rest of the shadow box. So I'm going to move my mouse to the bottom border of that black box and click and drag that up and just sort of set it where I want it to be. If you want to see how it's all going to look at this stage, with my black layer, I can bring that back to the front and you can see that that cutout is going to sit just in there. So I'm happy with that, but before I cut it out, I'm going to create the offsets for the blue and the green layers. So once I'm happy with the white, I'm going to offset -0.25 of an inch, and I'm going to rename this blue cutout. I'm going to do another offset of -0.25 inch and do the green cutout, if I can spell. Okay, so white cutout, holding down Shift for that white layer, slicing that. I'm going to delete those top two layers because I don't want it. Then I'm going to hold down my blue cutout and the blue layer and slice that, because there's nothing else on the blue or the green layer other than that frame. So I don't need to worry about text or anything like that. And then the next one is the green layer and the green cutout. Slice those two and delete those top two layers. Now, if I rearrange this in my layers panel, you can now see that it looks exactly how I want it to look. So I've got all of those four layers. When I go to cut them out, it is going to cut a black frame out of the black one. The white layer is going to have that text and the frame cut out. The blue will just have a square out of it, and the green will also have a square out of it. And that is my shadow box. I can realign them by selecting all of those layers and centering that. And that is how my shadow box looks. If you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, you can use that to sort of play around with. You can add more offsets to the text to create more layers. You can add more frames. You can use SVG files and weld them into the frames. There's a whole lot of things that you can do, but as a very, very basic level, I think this is probably the easiest thing that you can do. This is probably level 1, and then you can build on these skills from here.